Good morrow, scholars. Welcome to, I guess this is my review of Life and Death Twilight Reimagined. I kind of, sort of, did a review somewhat way early on before I started reading the book for the channel, but I thought it'd be a nice little thing to do, kind of go over some of my, well, not my ideas, but some thoughts I had about the series. Also, I still have a lightsaber. Okay, now, for the most part, like, if you remember, those of you that were watching, and those of you that weren't, I suppose, but anyway, at the start, I preferred Beau's story to Bella's. There was something more natural about the way it progressed at first, and then it just immediately dive-bombed into what I felt was wrong with the original Twilight, you know, the rushing into saying that they're perfect for each other, that there's nothing else in the entire world that would ever matter as much as them, too soon. Now, I'm all for star-crossed lovers, but the thing is, they just don't come off as star-crossed. They just come off as, well, Romeo and Juliet, which I get was kind of the point she was going for, that is to say, Stephanie Meyer. But she missed the point of what Romeo and Juliet were about. You know what I mean? You guys know what I mean. You guys are smart. And it didn't lend itself well to the plot progression at the speed at which it was going. You know what I mean? There's a lot of tell, not showing. For those of you that... and it actually makes sense because they share actors, the movies anyway. If you haven't seen The Last Airbender, first of all, congratulations, and I am jealous. But there was a section of the movie where Sokka, played by Jackson Rathbone, I think is his name. He played Jasper in the movies of Twilight. He and Sokka's love interest, I forget the actress's name, but the character's name is Yue. Katara, I don't know her actress's name, but there's just a voiceover of them looking at each other and smiling, and then Katara saying that they became fast friends, and that was all there was to it. Say hi, Adam. He waves. Seriously, I love the way it comes on, or it appears on the screen. Anyway, that was kind of how it felt like with Twilight at first, and then I thought Stephanie Meyer had fixed a lot of those problems that I had with the original Twilight and Life and Death Twilight Reimagined, but then she almost immediately, you remember, did a 180 and just went in that pitfall, and I lost a lot of, I don't want to say respect for Beau, but I lost a lot of emotional investment, I suppose. And after a while it came off as being very creepy. Like, you remember, there was like a week where every episode, well, yeah, every episode, but every chapter, I would mention how creepy the wording, or I guess the thought process of the characters were going, and I don't know, it's one of the main problems I had with the original Twilight, and I was really hoping that she would have addressed that more completely with the redo, but she ended up just kind of, instead of having it spread out throughout the entirety of the story, she kind of compressed it down into about 2/3 of the way in, and then to the end of it. And by the end, I felt like the story had gotten worse. That's not to say they're awful. I'm just saying it's towards the end of Twilight Reimagined, it wasn't as good, and I don't want to say that either one was great either. I'm honestly not a really big fan of either one, but like I said, I liked this one at first better. But at least with the original Twilight, it it was aware of what it was. This one, it tried too hard to be something it wasn't, and it just didn't work out. And that's not to say, like I said, that it's an awful thing and you have to be stupid to like them or anything like that. I would never say that, even though technically I just did, but that's not what I meant. And let's see. I feel like, especially, is it Julia? I've forgotten Jacob's character's name in this. I feel like, I mean, I understand in the first book, Jacob wasn't really featured that much, and the only reason he showed up in New Moon is because of her editor, that is to say Stephanie Meyer, wanting more backstory on them and everything, which I think was a good call. New Moon was probably my favorite out of the books, if only because Edward wasn't present. And that's another thing. I was really hoping that it would play out relatively the same. I mean, it did, but up until that end. Did you guys see that coming if you didn't already know? But I was kind of hoping that she would redo the entire series this way. Or at the very least, the sequel to this one could have been a somewhat different version of the original book, because she only wanted two at first. It was Twilight and then Forever Dawn. And that's... it was, if you don't know, she had, okay, it was the two books, and then instead of having New Moon and Eclipse, you know, New Moon with Edward going off and Jacob kind of moving in on the territory, that isn't to say that women are just objects or anything, and Eclipse, where Victoria comes back with, spoilers in case you guys don't know about New Moon and Eclipse. I don't know why you wouldn't, though. She comes back with her own little coven of vampires to kill the Cullens and then the werewolves. But in Forever Dawn, it was going to be somewhat all of that condensed down into one book. Somewhat filtered, obviously, because you wouldn't want like a book that thick. It'd probably be about there, I think. And Laurent was supposed to come back with the cousins from Denali, and Victoria was supposed to come back, and the Volturi were supposed to show up, and they were going to get married, and ultimately it ends pretty much the same way. Victoria dead. Laurent, I think, survives. I don't remember exactly what all she said was going to happen with that one, but if nothing else, she could have done something like that with Twilight Reimagined. And I was kind of hoping for that, because I felt like Jules, she didn't get enough screen time, which is a funny phrase to use for a book. But I don't know, it's just, it kind of bugs me. I know I talked about it earlier in this little series about Twilight, how it's racist. And it kind of is, you can't deny it. But at the same time, like, you can't like demonize it because she puts more emphasis on the white characters. I mean, she herself is a white lady, so it's perfectly understandable that she'd be more comfortable writing from a perspective that's more not to be racist, but more white rather than ethnic, just because you don't want to offend people for getting it wrong or whatever. But at the same time, like with me, you would offend people for not doing it at all or not doing it enough. You know, you can't win is the point I'm making. You can't win. Iggy's in the bath, by the way, in case you were wondering. Yeah. I wonder how he's doing. Yeah, I think he's old enough where I don't need to supervise him anymore. Have I mentioned how old he is? He's about 15, right? Thank you, Adam. Okay. Another problem I had is, okay, I've forgotten, do they mention the Volturi at all in the original book? I feel like they don't, because I don't remember that coming up. And I specifically remember in New Moon, in like the first 2 chapters or whichever one it was, I specifically remember Edward talking about the Volturi when she asks what would have happened had she died or whatnot at the end of the book after James. I have a friend named James at work. Did I mention? Yeah, I did. What would have happened if he had won and killed her or and whatnot? And let's see. Sorry, I really like this lightsaber. Let me know what you think. My sister's actually gonna get one, and it's gonna be red because obviously. Anyway, I felt like she mentioned the Volturi, kind of to speed up the story a little bit, cause like with the Forever Dawn, you saw how she stretched it out into 3 books and 4 movies, plus Twilight. And I don't know if I agree entirely with how she had the alternate characters. Like I mentioned in the reading, the character who was able to steal another vampire's gift and give it to someone else. That's way too much. No, you can't do that. If I'm working on a story, and if I have one character who is a spirit channeler, that'd be like me saying, okay, if one of my characters die, but she's still alive, she can find their soul, bring it back, and put it in a new body, and then they can continue living. It's just, sure, it's feasible, and you can understand the mechanics of how it works, but that doesn't mean it's something you can do, or should do, rather. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. Anyway, I also was kind of disappointed that they didn't get like any specific appearance. And this goes into a problem I had with the original series. The original series, Star Trek. The Volturi sure take their time doing things, don't they? I remember reading somewhere, somebody was asking, what, did they just walk all the way there? Which I could see them doing, honestly. I mean, we saw them coming out of the woods, so they probably ended up walking. Anyway, that's not important. What is important is, I was really hoping that R.O. and Marcus and them would have, I guess, more of an appearance, just because it turns out that this is the only book in this series, which is too bad, like I mentioned, but I guess there's just too much that she couldn't have put into this story. But with so many chapters of padding, honestly, I feel like there should have been something, if nothing else, like the epilogue should have been, well, I take that back. If she decides to do a sequel, it would probably fix the problems I have. But the Volturi should have been brought in to deal with what the Cullens did and whether or not they should be held responsible. But at the same time, like, this is the problem I have with that, even though that's a problem I have with the series, is that she already did that with the tribe, you know, and the werewolves. You can't have, like, back-to-back them being queried, I guess is a good word for it. You know what I mean? And I don't know. She left it open for a sequel. I know she did. But at the same time, there's just nothing left for her to really do in a sequel. Because she kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say she jumped the gun or she dropped the ball or anything like that. But it's open for a sequel, but there's nothing she can do for that sequel. Which is too bad. I like some of these characters. And like I said, Charlie's my favorite character in this series. And I just hated how his character journey ended. You know what I mean? I'm sure most people have, even Adam over here. The thought of letting down your parents or saying something so awful and then never getting to see them again and make it right resonates with a lot of you. I know, especially with Spider-Man, if you guys are fans of him, that was a very major part of his character just since the start of Spider-Man. well, with Uncle Ben and him indirectly causing his murder. Spoilers in case you don't know anything about Spider-Man. I spoil a lot of things. Then again, most of the Rosebud was the sled, and Snape killed Dumbledore. Okay, I think that about covers everything I could think of in terms of spoilers. Wow, this is actually a pretty long episode. I'll try and wrap this up soon then. Let's see. Did I mention anything else to you about problems I had with Twilight Reimagined?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Let's see. She used the word murmured way too much. There are other words she could have used, or she could have not used them at all. And let's see, she should have given more. It's difficult to say. If she gave any more like character development to like Michaela and Jeremy and all those guys, there wouldn't have been any more room for the story that she wanted. You know, their romance, which, like I've mentioned, was lacking in meat, I guess you could say. You know, like it's very bare bones, and there's no like real story to it. You know, never mind. I'm not going to go into detail in the analogy that I was making. It's a lot of just them saying they're in love and how theirs is the greatest love, whatever. I don't know. Especially in the original Twilight. She at least addressed that somewhat with this one. But at the same time, it came off as worse once Beau started acting like that. You know what I mean? Because at first he seemed to have a pretty good head on his shoulders, and he was not sure of himself, but at the very least he understood who and what he was. You know what I mean? And then just all of a sudden he completely devotes himself to somebody he's only just met and has decided that they're going to be together forever. And I mean, I understand. Stephanie Meyer said that when a vampire is turned, their thought process, the way they think, doesn't change. That stays the same their entire vampire existence. Which leads me to another problem that I had. I think I mentioned how since Edward is from the northern half of the United States and Jasper was from the South during the Civil War, that they wouldn't get along, if only because Jasper wouldn't be able to get past his thought process of, you know, the North is the enemy. Although I suppose she could have gotten away with saying that he was very liberal for the time and was only fighting for, you know, personal reasons rather than hate or something. It's just, like I said, there's too much story that she should have put in, but if she did that, there wouldn't have been enough room for the story that she wanted to write. And that's perfectly fine to write the story that she wrote. It's just she put too much in that had nothing to do with like the story as it was progressing. There's, like I said, there was too much filler. You can't have a lot of filler and, you know, get all this little stuff in, and then when the important stuff comes in, shorten it down and kind of put band-aids and staples over it to connect it to the main plot. If I remember correctly, in the original Twilight, Stephanie Meyer was told that the book needed some sort of conflict by the end, and that's when she came up with Victoria and Jasper and Laurent, and that's perfectly fine to have them. And she kind of sort of foreshadows that they're there, like she mentions them, not, you know, outright, but she does bring to attention that they're present. But there was just no build up to the hunt. They should have been brought in probably 4 chapters before they were, which about the time that they that they get back from Port Angeles, they should have made an appearance, those three. And that would give us enough time for them to be established as characters, their personalities, their conflicts with the Cullens, and here should have been where the Quiute tribe shows up and, you know, protests them being present at all, but the Cullens can't, you know, like, just drive them off because political reasons. Sure, why not? And then we lead into the conflict that is, you know, Bowen being hunted, and then after that, you know, you can have all of that. And it would have been, it probably would be a much more difficult story to write it that way, but I feel like if that had been spread out a little bit more evenly, it would obviously wouldn't be lopsided, but there would be a better character growth for everybody involved. Let me know what you think, and I think that's about all the problems I had with this. You know, pacing towards the middle, character derailment, I guess, is the like broadest term I can use for what happened with like Bo and Edith. I didn't really like much either. I've mentioned a few times that in the original Twilight, Edward should have been completely cut from the series, and there should have been a romantic interest between her and Jasper, because that would give us conflict between Jasper and Alice, and then Alice and Jacob would have made for an interesting interspecies romance. Because unlike with Edward, we actually see Jasper struggle with his bloodlust. And I don't know, just like here, they just had more of a connection going on. And another thing, like, they never really show Jasper and Alice, or Archie and Jessamine, or, you know, any of the Cullens. They never show them as actually being romantic with each other. They've just kind of said, oh, they were meant for each other, and that's it. Which goes in with the whole tell, don't show that I mentioned earlier. Okay, that's enough rambling. I've talked enough. Sorry for talking your ear off and whatnot. Let me know what you guys think. If you had any problems with how the story ended, where she went with the story, or if I'm completely wrong and if I should shut up or whatnot. I say whatnot an awful lot. I don't know why. Okay, like I said, just let me know down in the comments below your thoughts on the series, on whether or not you think I have a leg to stand on. And I'm going to go get Iggy out of the bath. But until next time, goodbye everybody. Seriously, go buy a lightsaber from Ultra Saber.